But Rippon wasn't doing it alone. This Redskins team was loaded. The posse threw in 186 catches for nearly 3,000 yards and 23 touchdowns. The latest version of the Hogs allowed only 9 sacks. Ernest Biner rushed for over 1,000 yards, and Gerald Riggs scored 11 touchdowns. The defense allowed only 5 teams to score 20 or more points, and the Redskins won 8 of their games by 245 points.
I think if you went back and you looked at the stats, you would see that our defense was in the top 10 of defenses every year for years.
Joe Gibbs was elected to the Hall in 1996 after retiring in 1992. His first tenure in Washington lasted 12 seasons and included 140 wins and 3 Super Bowl victories.
I think Gibbs' ability to win 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks really speaks to his ability to play to the strengths of his players. In terms of the significance of that accomplishment,
The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
Team was a juggernaut. The average 36 points a game, the highest in franchise history, demolishing teams en route to a 10-1 mark and a second straight championship game appearance. The Giants never had a chance. Incredibly, the monsters of the Midway were masters of the NFL for the 3rd time in 4 years. In 1946, the war was over. Papa Bear was back prowling the sidelines, and the Bears romped their way to another title, whipping the Giants. 4 World's Championships in 7 seasons made the Bears the league's first ever dynasty. What heights they might have achieved without the war will never be known.
And you know, we won 4 World Championships in 6 years, and the thing that was devastating was that the war broke us up. The monsters of the Midway, they were rough, they were tough, they were mean, and they were cruel, but they were so wonderful.
The Cowboys coming into the 90s, they were like the worst team in the league.
Old age had caught up to America's team by the time Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys in 1989.
We must win. We will win. Win is the name of the game.
Jones made a big splash in Big D. Within a year, he put legendary coach Tom Landry out to pasture, hired his college teammate Jimmy Johnson, and traded Pro Bowl running back Herschel Walker.
Thank you, Herschel Walker and Mike Lynn, who was the Vikings general manager, who sent the Cowboys a boatload of draft picks for Herschel Walker. That kind of helped jumpstart this thing.
Retooled, the Cowboys quickly reclaimed their spot atop the NFL, winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, earning them the number 5 spot on our list.
The Cowboys are back on top of the mountain now.
They knew they were good. They were going to tell you they were good.
How about them Cowboys?
Team you love to hate, team you didn't want to root for.
If you're going to talk the talk, you're going to walk the walk.
Cowboys are easy to not like. Jerry's a brash owner. They've got a good-looking quarterback. They've got a really boisterous wide receiver.
What I do? Make plays. Nothing but make plays, baby.
They have a guy that leads the league in.
I love the 50s Browns being on this list. I really do.
That's a little high from a team from the 50s.
10 seasons completed since the Browns were organized, 10 straight division championships, 7 world titles. The dynasty is established.
I'm so glad you guys are doing this because young sports fans need to know. Cleveland Browns of the 1950s, Otto Graham won a league title or a division title for a decade straight.
The All-American Football Conference, where the Cleveland Browns got started, they dominated. They won every year, 46 through 49. Okay, so people blew it off. 1950, they come in the league, in their first game, they hammered the defending champ Eagles 35-10.
They were supposed to be a laughingstock from this minor league, and they came over and just beat all the best teams in the NFL.
And the Browns have added another championship, this one a cherished conquest in the National Football League.
The Cleveland Browns dominating the NFL in the 50s is kind of like if Jim Kelly and the Houston Gamblers had come in and dominated the NFL in the 90s. The Browns of the 1940s and 1950s professionalized football.
The Niners of the 80s, I'm always going to think that's as great as it gets.
Magnificent touchdown, 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 49ers!
You had games where it was a finely tuned machine and they just looked unstoppable.
Out front is Rice. He is there. He's got it. He's got it.
But then they had games where it's not looking so good and what are we going to do? And that's when the magic put them over the top.
Caught by Clark. Here's a touchdown for the 49ers.
There were 3 things. There's death, there's taxes, there was Joe Montana game-winning drives.
Joe Montana was a creator. He was an improviser.
Just complete control of the offense.
If Joe Montana rapped, he'd probably be a great freestyle rapper.
He was the ultimate instrument, but Walsh was the virtuoso.
Bill Walsh brought art to the game of football. They created a system that 3 decades later,
that's West Coast offense all day.
Other teams are winning Super Bowls with.
The 49ers were a philosophy as much as they were a team. Took a guy like Joe Montana and made him a perfect system quarterback.
Precision, it's a clinic.
It made stars out of guys like Roger Craig.
Breaks loose again. Oh, what a spectacular run by Roger.
The Packers are, I think, what we think of as a dynasty.
The Green Bay Packers are the National Football League champions.
You think of Vince Lombardi's camel's hair coat and fedora, the ice bull.
Star begins the count. He's got the quarterback.
Gotta be number 1. Come on. Man, there's no question.
Lombardi's Packers were tremendous because, number 1, they were tremendously coached.
What we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here and try to run this play in the alley.
Part of it was running things in a way that was unique, creating a modern type of training camp coming out of the 1950s when football was still a little bit haphazard.
You can't play fatigue, therefore it's up to you to be in prime physical condition.
You talk with any Packer person involved with that team, and they would tell you that they had this miserable guy coaching them.
Everybody's driving out there. Nobody's tackling.
But this miserable guy knew how to push the right buttons.
I'll tell you something, Leroy. You're not going to get your job back unless we get a better performance.
Vince Lombardi to 21st century NFL.
The number 2 dynasty of all time, the 70s Steelers.
the blue-collar mentality, tough defense, pounding the football, brawn.
You look at every single position group up and down, and there's just greatness.
That was just the perfect storm of a team.
There are 27 teams in pro football. And then there are the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Building that thing from what it was, I mean, it was awful. People forget the Steelers were awful.
Years of frustration ended with the arrival of head coach Chuck Noll and some divine intervention.
Fires it downfield, and there's a collision. And got it caught out of the air. The ball is pulled in by Franco Harris. Harris is going for a touchdown for Pittsburgh.
The play jump-started the #2 dynasty of all time as the Steelers hoisted the Lombardi Trophy 4 times in 6 years.
Number 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the champions of the National Football League for the 4th time.
To me, the greatest defense of all time is Steel Curtain. I mean, come on. They were the best.
Players like Mean Joe Green and Jack Ham and Jack Lambert.
No, they're not a number 4 team.
I got to ask you, who's ahead of the Patriots?
Patriots are Super Bowl champions back-to-back. 3 out of 4.
When you talk about the Patriots as a dynasty, you have to start with the fact that they've done it in the free agency era. That's supposed to deny dynasties.
Patriots back in the lead.
It's an era of parity. They've made it to 6 Super Bowls in 15 years. That's an NFL record. To me, the Patriots are the best dynasty of all time.
Time to roll!
When you look at their roster, really the only constant has been Tom Brady.
On an absolute dime!
And Bill Belichick.
That's it. That's the way to go. Nice job.
It seems like they have a new cast of characters every single season.
Touchdown! Kenbrell Tompkins! Shea Caldwell.
It's an absolutely amazing coaching job Bill Belichick and his staff have done with this team.
And impressively, they've done it with different styles. When Brady was first there,
Light sticks.
his job was to not mess things up. Then they go to flying up and down the field.
Touchdown pass number 50.
It's all about Brady and Moss.
They are the great dynasty of the era of free agency.
I'm trying to take care of you.
But as long as Belichick's running this franchise, it could go on forever.